Boom. Boom. Boom.
Hi, everybody. I'm Luann Morris, and with me today is Deborah Colleen Rose. She is giving us her audio biography. So today I think that I would like for her to start with her job experiences. What was your first job, Deborah?
Well, I'm just lucky I got a job. I started working in high school. I love this job. It's the only real job I've had, but meaning that it's the only job where I work for another company or for someone else besides myself, because I've been self-employed ever since I left this job. But I loved this job and it didn't pay diddly. And I started out as a part-time cashier at Homer's Home Improvement, which really tells you how old I am. And it was like a smaller version of Home Depot. And if you live in the Dallas area, anywhere where there's like an old Ross store or something like that is usually one of the old locations for them.
Oh, really?
This is hilarious. Our competitor was Handy Dan. So there was
Handy
Handy
Dan.
Dan, and then there was Homer's, and I think both of them have some weird logo with a man wearing coveralls, you know. And I started out there as a part-time cashier when I was in high school, and then I just stayed there for a couple of years, and I wound up being a department manager, and I was department manager over several of the departments. Uh, uh, one of them being hardware, one of them being the garden shop, which was really a lot of fun. And it's also why I don't have plants in my house today. And then I became a store manager. And I was one of the youngest store managers that they had in the history of the company. And I was one of the few females they had actually as a store manager. So I guess I was there maybe 4 years total
Oh, wow.
through the
Okay.
whole thing. And it was a learning experience. First of all, I was, as I got working away from the cash register into the store, I was one of few females. Most of them, being a hardware store, home improvement, most of the employees were male of some capacity. And we had a lot of interesting characters. And I actually was thinking about this the other night, and I was able to remember some of these men's names. We had an old Cajun guy that ran the hardware department, and his name was Perry. I don't remember his last name. He had white hair and a handlebar mustache with that
Wow.
Cajun accent. And he just hated people. He absolutely hated people. And he'd be singing songs under his breath, making up songs about people, just cussing like a sailor. That stupid motherfucker, he wants to nail, and I'm not gonna nail him, not like he wants. I mean, he's just making up these stupid songs in that Cajun accent. And he'd get so frustrated, he'd kick and he'd do this with his arms and everything. And I'd always go, "What are you doing, Perry?" He goes, "I'm just working off my frustration." And he'd just be walking up down the aisles, those arms and legs just a going. And I'd just be sitting there laughing my butt off. Everybody thought he was weird, but I loved him. I thought he was
Well, it was
hilarious.
weird, but you know, takes all
Well,
kinds.
I like weird people, so I like you.
Thanks.
But um, two of the women that I worked with, once was Sharon Finley, and I can't remember the other one's name. We actually went to New Orleans for a weekend together.
Mm.
And I was the youngest of the group, and I drove, which was probably a mistake. And we drove straight down there, and we stayed 3 days, and it was for St. Patty's Day. So it's kind of apropos that we're doing this right after St. Patty's Day.
Yeah.
And we had a blast, and we had a room that I never saw. I never saw. I threw my bags in there, and I don't think I saw it until I went and got my bag to leave. And so that means that for 3 days, I did nothing but eat and drink, no sleep, and we had a blast. And then I drove us back with no sleep, and we lived to tell the tale.
Thank God.
I know. It was so much fun. But the one thing, I don't remember a lot of that trip, honestly. And I don't think it has anything to do with the head injuries. It has to do with the hurricane.
Oh my gosh, they will send you into amnesia really quick.
But we took a carriage ride during through the French Quarter.
Mm.
And of course, I'm only like 19 at the time. So, I'm still a baby. And we're in this carriage, and the man that was driving the carriage, it was open horse carriage, and he was driving it, and he was just as southern in New Orleans as he could be, okay? And he was beautiful, beautiful man. He was a man of with dark skin, but he had these wonderful. He was old, but he was beautiful, and he had these wonderful lines in his face. Everything. He was just fascinating. And we drove by this bar, and there was nothing but men out on the corner around this bar. And I was like, where are the women? He goes, that's a perverted place. That's Sodom and Gomorrah. Don't even look. Miss, don't even look. Don't even look. And I'm thinking, well, why did he drive us by here if he didn't want us to look? And some of the men started making obscene gestures and doing nasty things with their crotches and their tongues and just making fools of themselves. And he got that horsewhip and he's throwing that horsewhip. Going, get back, you heathens, get back, you heathens, get back, you heathens. We got young ladies in here. These are ladies. And I was laughing so hard, I nearly fell out of the carriage. They had to grab my shirt and pull me back in because I was laughing so. But I use that word all the time now, heathens, and that's where I picked it up from. And I refer to my grandchildren as heathens.
Yeah,
These those heathens up to. So
yeah. We used
what
to
are we
kid,
talking about?
I used, well, we used to say, we're just unwashed heathens. What do you want?
Well, it's funny how people don't even know what that word really means. I said that about my grandkids one time, and this person goes, "What does their religious preference have anything to do with who they are?" And I'm like, "What?" And she goes, "You call them heathens." And I'm like, "Yeah, that's because they're wild, they're crazy, they're out of control." No, that means that they're not Christian. And I'm like, "Well, I'm leaving. I got to go find a brick wall." And she goes, "Why?" I said, "So I can bang my head on it because I can't believe you said that." So, anyway, heathens, pagans, whatever.
Well, and I have to remind everyone at that time, 18 was the drinking age.
Was it?
Yes.
Not that I cared, but
You probably didn't, but yes, 18
why are
was
we reminding them of that?
because you said you were 19.
Oh, I was also married. I'd
Yeah,
just been recently married. I left my husband at home to run wild in the streets of New Orleans.
I'm surprised.
Yeah, me too. No, not really. So, anyway, working at Homer's, I don't know. I had a blast. I mean, we worked odd hours. We got paid nothing. I mean,
Didn't we?
a- and actually, even though you made a little more money when you went into management, it was actually less money if you broke it down by the hour because we didn't have a schedule. We didn't have an hourly schedule. And so we were there sometimes 10, 12 hours a day. We'd have to come in if somebody was sick, blah, 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 blah. I
And you were
mean,
salaried, right?
yes,
Yeah.
yes. I mean, the big deal is we got a ham at Christmas and a turkey
Ooh,
and a cost of living raise once a year. And the district manager just hated me. I don't know why he hated me because my sales figures were always up in my departments and I'd be goofing off. I don't know how I managed this, but I would be goofing off, laughing. I wasn't goofing off, but I would stop and talk to people and laugh and everything, or I was we'd be laughing really loud in the break room. And he'd always go, "Don't you have something to do?" And I'm like, "Well, why don't you go look at my department and you tell me?" I was a bit of a smart ass, I guess.
You think?
And he literally would come in with a white glove to go and check my shelves and stuff to see if they'd been dusted, and he could never really find anything wrong with my department. And we had to put together our own lawnmowers and our own, lawn equipment to put them up for displays, and they had to work. So if people wanted to try them out, like if they were electric or whatever, we'd have to let them try it out. So, I mean, I could build a house based on what I learned at that job. And I have taught several of my husbands how to do plumbing work and electrical work and told them how to do that. And it was always funny because, you know, people would come in and they say, "Well, I need to do this, this, and this." And I'm like, "No, you actually need these parts." And they'd always go, "Let me talk to the manager." And here come Perry. "What's wrong with you people? She is the manager." What I mean? Throwing those arms around and everything, throwing a fit. And they would look, go, "She's not the manager." They would think we were lying to them. And I'm like, "No, I'm the manager. I actually earned this position." Isn't that great?
Well, most of the customers at that time probably were men, and they didn't
Or
want a
the
woman telling
women
them
with a
what to do.
laundry list this long going, "My husband wants me to," no, that can't be right. "He wants me to get a female part." I'm like, "Yeah, that's what you need. You got a male and you got a female. Do you have the male to go with that?" "I don't know what you mean." And I'm like, "Okay, well, let me show you what they look like. Do you have this part at home?" "Yes." "Well, this is the part that goes in it. That's why this is the male and this is the female." Because men invented electricity and hardware and plumbing, so they just named it things that were easy for their short little brains to remember. So they just call them male parts and female parts.
Yeah, yeah.
So anyway,
Yes, I get that.
Perry
So,
also taught me what to do with a dead body.
oh,
Yes. He told me how you would take a dead body into the bayou in Louisiana and let the gators eat
is that
it.
kind of like letting the pigs eat it?
Yeah, that's what you do in Arkansas. In Louisiana, it's the gators. In Arkansas, it's the pigs. But because he was always huffing and puffing when he was like moving heavy things, and he'd always go, "It's like carrying a dead body." And I just always said, "How do you know what carrying a dead body feels like?"
Obviously, he knew.
He did. And he made no bones about it. And ironically, I believed him. I think he was telling the truth. I do. I really, really, really do.
So, you left Homer's. Why?
Well, well, no, there's a whole section here that you got to hear about. So first of all, I got transferred to another store to help run it. And so I was traveling across town, and the summer that we had such a hot summer, a woman committed suicide in her car in our parking lot, and I found the body. So we had to shut down the store because when they opened up that car, the stench was so bad, it permeated the whole entire block, and we had to shut the store down because of the stench. But I had to stay there to give my um, testimony or my word or my report to the police because I was the one that found her. Okay. Now, what was weird about it is that she was already decomposing because it was so hot. It was that summer where it was like 110, 112, and she'd been out there. I guess she'd committed suicide like Sunday night. And I opened the store Tuesday morning. So her car sat there for over 24 hours. And I thought she was in there asleep. And I thought she was a black woman because of how dark she
Wow.
was. And then I realized because the car was locked, you couldn't open it and all this other stuff. And then I realized that there was a problem because it looked like her scalp was moving. And what it was is that her head was covered in maggots and the skin and everything was just writhing. Isn't this a fun story?
No.
So I broke the window out because your mind doesn't register, or mine didn't, that she was dead. I'm seeing movement and I'm like, maybe, I'm not registering she's dead yet. That's not in my mind yet. So I broke the window open and nearly passed out from the stench. And so we called the police and all this stuff. So anyway, I just thought that was an interesting side story. There's no moral there.
Except don't break
Except
the window out. Observe, is the woman dead?
no, I think if I have a moral of that story, is pay attention to your environment and go and look and ask questions when you see something, and don't ignore things, because she shot herself in the head, so there was never any chance of helping her. But there was no reason for her to sit there that long and have that body decompose that way. And I just always, and what was weird about that is that she lived in the apartment complex across the street from the store. So why she drove across the street to do it, unless maybe she didn't want her family to find her or something. I don't know. Who knows? You don't know what people are thinking. But the what was weird about that, oh, there is a moral to the story, at least an interesting side note. What was weird about that is that one of the reasons why I had asked to move to this store was that a good friend of mine that worked in my department had committed suicide by shooting herself in her car.
Okay.
And I wanted a different environment. I wanted a different store after that happened because I was really devastated by her passing.
Seems to be a common thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I've had a lot of people that I've known, including my brother, that have committed suicide so it's not something that I'm unfamiliar with. So, anyway,
Unfortunately.
after that, Homer's decided to open a new store and they were building a new building over there in Richardson, down the street from Richardson Square Mall, and I got moved over there to help open that store. So we were there during the construction part of that, and I was dating three guys that worked on the construction site. I had just I had just separated from my first husband. I told you the dating stories are more fun. And so I was dating one of the construction workers. His name was Jeff. I was dating his supervisor, who was a project manager. His name was Jeff. And I was dating one of the architects that was supervising the construction, and his name was Jeff.
No. Are you kidding me?
I'm not
Well,
kidding.
you're not going to confuse them then, are you?
No, made it real easy. Made
Yeah.
it real easy. And so one was tall and blonde and real lean and muscular. He was the one that was the construction worker. His boss was shorter and dark haired, and he actually was a part-time dancer at La Bear. And he had a little devil like from the cartoons
Yep.
tattooed on his butt. So if you know a La Bear dancer, they had that on his butt. That's the guy I was dating. And then Jeff, the architect, I actually wound up having a long-term relationship with him, and we went into business together because he told me the writing was on the wall with Homer's
Hmm.
that they were about to file bankruptcy and close their shops. And so when I realized that was what was going on, I started I don't know what you want to call it. Anyway, it was a vendor business where I represented certain hardware lines and went to the stores and ordered for them and stocked their shelves and stuff. So that was my first foray into being self-employed. And so I got out of there before everything went belly up. And my roommate worked with them until they actually shut down. And because after Stephen and I split up, I got a roommate, and his name was John. And we were roommates for quite a while. And we were not partners. We were not lovers.
You were roommates.
We were roommates, and he loved me dearly and even was going to buy a house for us to move into. And then I wound up getting married the second time, and he hated my guts for a long time when I did that. But then we kind of reconciled, but we've never been close since then. But I love him dearly, and I think he would do anything for me if I asked him to. Still, he cared for me deeply. But you don't really know what that means and what that entails when you're that young and dumb, or at least I didn't. I didn't. But the three Jeffs were fun. I had a good time with them. What do you want to know? Ask me anything.
So what did you and Jeff do? You stocked shelves in other
No,
stores?
I did. That was my first business. I was not in business with Jeff doing that. That was my business I started.
Okay. All
Later
right.
on, he started his own architect firm, and I went to work with him, and we worked on a project together. And I did the sales end on that project, and we had a group of investors, and we all office together, and I had a beautiful office over there off of a 35 in Mockingbird with marble floors and a fireplace and a beautiful marble bar. And I had quite a bit of money in my account, and then I got pregnant with my son and was going to have my son and was making millions of dollars, literally, not figuratively, literally. And we went to the office one day and everybody was gone. The furniture was gone, and there were three men with FBI badges waiting for me at the door.
Well, hello. What's up?
And I was 8 months pregnant. And so I spent quite a bit of that last pregnancy month at the FBI office giving details and explanations and information about the project that we were working on. And what it was we were building a hotel that the premise of it is that the two top floors, or was it the two top three, the top three floors were suites that people could, corporations could buy and they could use for offices or apartments for their, you know, their people or whatever. And then the rest of it was office building and hotel. Okay. Similar to what they're doing now with the combination at the, where you got shops and apartments and things like that. Well, it was pretty new. We didn't have anything like that in Dallas at the time. And I was finding the contractors and I was also selling the units. Well, what they were doing with the contractors is that they were getting the contractors to sign off on contracts that they were buying a suite and then awarding them the contract. And I did not know that part. And of course, you have to remember, I'm having to work from memory here, so I don't have all the details quite right. But anyway, what they were doing was illegal. Okay. Now, what's interesting is that so all the money in my account got taken.
No.
So I went from having over $1 million in my account to having 35 cents in my purse. And I'm 8 months pregnant. And and everybody disappeared, including Jeff, who was the father of my child. And so that was a mess. And it was very stressful and it was very upsetting. But it was kind of neat because I wound up being part of a think tank for Wang and Honeywell on how to take voicemail. Voicemail was an internal communication device like it is now, but it was only used internally in corporate America, and how to take that to the public. And so I was one of, I don't know, I think there was 12 of us total. I was the only female that I'm aware of, and I was the youngest one. I've gone from one extreme to another. I was always the youngest. Now I'm always the oldest. But I had a plan on how to take it public, and so did this other guy. So they funded our idea, and so we went out and we sold this stuff because I'd been working on this on the side along with doing the other thing. So this was building up over several months, and we put together a small little sales force, and we went out there and started selling voicemail for small companies to use as their answer machine because they could retrieve the messages from anywhere. They didn't have to go back to their answering machine at the office, and they weren't tied to pagers all the time and things like that, because this is the day and age of pagers.
Yes.
And it was very successful. So people have voicemail, and I'm a part of why they have voicemail. So it's kind of
That's
interesting.
fun, isn't it?
Yeah, but what's cool is the building that we were working on actually did get built. I don't know who took the project over or how that worked, but the hotel got built. It's office buildings now. It's over there in that quadrant just north of 635 in the tollway off of Inwood. And several years ago, I went in there for a business meeting, and the marble that I had picked out was being used. The wallpaper and the colors in the bathrooms for the lobby were exactly the ones I picked out. I was like, I mean, it was kind of shocking to walk in there and see all that and think,
Was it
damn,
deja
I can
vu?
make a dime off this shit. What the hell? You know, that doesn't seem right. But anyway, so I'm sure someone picked up that whole thing for pennies on the dollar. So
Yeah, they probably did.
anyway, so that kind of takes you through Homer's, how I got started to being an entrepreneur. Um,
And then,
when,
so after the think tank,
what about it?
what'd you do next?
Well, during the course of all that, I had my son, and I'm still selling, the voicemail, and I got that was a fun time too. I got to run with some really wonderful people. I met Norman Brinker and other people. I got to hang out at the Willow Bend Polo Club, going to events there and stuff. So I was high cotton for a while, and I was doing a radio commercial on a local channel here. I don't remember which channel. And used to, you could call in and do impromptu radio commercials, And I did a radio commercial, and I got a phone call at the office right after that. Blast from the past. It was a guy I had dated on and off for several years. And he called me and asked me to come see him. He was in drug rehab. And
Oh,
the last time I had seen him, it had been at least a year, I think, maybe longer. And I had moved, so he couldn't find me. Um, because he was a wonderful person, but I couldn't deal with his addiction. He was a heroin addict. And so, stupid me, I guess. I went out there to see him, and then we're right back in the middle of our relationship after that because, he's getting clean. He's getting
yeah,
clean.
yeah,
And, you know, I don't, we didn't have as much information about things like that back then, because we didn't have the internet and people were not talking about that. And drug addicts were just dirty, awful people, they were the scum of the earth, blah, 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 blah. And so, anyway, what I thought was if he's in drug rehab and he's getting clean, then all is well.
right.
And that wasn't true. And we'll have to say more of this story for another time. But anyway, we wound up getting married. And this was my second husband. And this is the one that died. He died after we'd been married for a year. But being in a relationship with him is what transitioned me into being in the bail bond business. So that's how all that got together.
So you did that while you were, how did you get involved in the radio? What were
I
you
just
doing?
called it and I did a radio. I told you back then you could call and they would like take little phone calls, some of the radio stations, and you could just plug your business for 15 to seconds to 30 seconds. So I called and said, "Hey, I'm here with voice retrieval and we're doing blah, blah,
Oh,
blah. And here's how you reach us. And this is what we do." And we had a really great slogan, but I don't remember what it was now. And so he heard my voice. I didn't use my name or anything, but he recognized my voice and he wrote down the number and called me. So that's how I met Gail Lightfoot too. Gail Lightfoot, from
hmm
years
hmm
of doing the traffic. She was on a radio station. This is several years later, fast forward after I've gotten out of the bail bond business, and I called and did a little plug, and we got to talking, and she did a Sunday morning interview with me about my PI business.
Oh,
That's how we
because
got to meet.
you went from selling voicemail to
To
bail bonds,
home.
to bail bonds.
Yeah, it was not quite like that. I went I went from selling voicemail, and then I actually went into sales for Wayne Computers. And while I was with them, I got the funding to start a bail bond business because that's what my husband wanted to do. He said it would make him happy. So I got us an investor and we funded a bail bond business. And because he had a relapse and got back into drugs, I had to take over the bail bond business. Plus, I started a second one to have as a backup. has a backup company. But so we had two bail bond. We actually had two bail bond company, and one was called Genesis Bonding, where freedom begins. I thought that was catchy. And then the second company was Judges Bonding. Here comes the judge. We're going to get you out. Here comes the judge.
So probably we need to have a segment on the interesting people you met doing that.
Oh yeah. Yeah, what's sad, here's what's sad is that I have two issues with some of my stories. I would love to tell you names
Mhm,
because it would make the story even more intriguing, but either one, I can't remember their name, or two, I can't tell you the name because of legal ethics,
mhm.
because of the investigative ethics and things of that nature, because I could tell you some things that curl your toes. Uh,
Well, you can tell them, but you just have to say it's Andy.
Well, I can't tell you names. I can tell the stories, but I can't tell you the names. Some
No,
of the stories I
no,
can't
you
because
have
if
to
I told
make
you the
up a name.
talking about too. Because some of the stuff is highly publicized and things like that. But I'll work around it and tell what I can and stuff. So just to kind of run it down, I ran a store, a hardware store. I had a vending rep company. I represented voicemail and worked with Wayne Computers, had bail bond business, did my own bounty hunting, which is a story in itself. Transitioned into being a private investigator. Been doing that since then, but I've also, during that course of time, been a handwriting therapist, a coach, which I still do those as well. I was the education director for the National Alliance of Mental Illness of Texas for almost 5 years. Now I have the Miles and Smiles Entertainment Company. So what I've done is I've taken what somebody I loved wanted to do, or I've taken what I'm good at and turned it into a way to make money.
Hmm.
And I've always said the reason why I've always been self-employed since Homer's is nobody would hire me.
I don't believe that.
Well, I do because here's why. When I was first started my private investigation company, I was working undercover on a case. A corporation hired me to go investigate one of their competitors. So I got a job with their competitor doing sales. All right. And I was doing good. I mean, I was getting paid to work my undercover case, and I was making anywhere from $5,000 to $10,000 a month in commission,
Damn.
selling from the people I was, gathering information on. So I was double dipping. But I only had that job for about 5 months because they fired me. And here's why. So the home office was in Houston, and I was dating one of the VPs in Houston at the time as well, which gave me a lot of information. I'm good at my job, trust me. But I really liked him. The dating was just actually was a bonus for me because I really liked him and I enjoyed the relationship. But it did give me access to some things I needed to know. So anyway, I was dating him. I'm making a ton of money, so I think my shit don't stink. Okay, because I am young. I am young and naive and unsophisticated about certain things. And I had bought tickets to a concert. I had rented a limousine. I was taking four of my best friends to this thing. We were hot shit. Okay. Well, the VP and the president from Houston fly up because there's some emergency meeting they got to have at 5 o'clock that day. And I'm like, hey, I got concert tickets. I got a limousine. I got people counting on me. So the boss man here looked at me and goes, well, Deborah, just do what you think is best. Well, guess what I did?
You went to the concert.
I damn well did. He told me to do what I think is best. So I did. That was not the best thing. I was wrong. So anyway, the bottom line is I came in the next day, they fired my ass. I threw a wall-eyed fit going, telling them that they were going to regret it. They had no idea what I meant. They did regret it because even I had enough information on my case that my client won their lawsuit. They were going to regret hiring me anyway, but that was really a good dramatic exit. I liked it, so it was good. But I hated losing that extra money. That sucked.
Yeah.
That sucked. So anyway, so
Okay, let's see.
But
You were undercover, so you'd had a PI job. How long did you do the PI stuff?
I'm still doing the PI stuff.
Oh,
Scott's working the case right now while we're doing. We just picked up two new clients this weekend. I just don't talk about it. I mean, there's nothing to really talk about. I've done undercover stuff. We did tons of workman's comp cases. I've always gotten the clients out of desperation, theirs, not mine, because every single client I've had has hired someone that has failed miserably. And for whatever reason, they'll call me as a last resort. And I'm like, if people would just call me as the first resort, but of course, then they wouldn't appreciate me as much because I get things done that other people don't get done because I'll do the weird crap. Like I went and lived in this woman's RV park on the weekends on and off for 6 months undercover. And she took me golfing and all this stuff. Well, that's what I needed. I needed to get video of her golfing because she was on a workman's comp claim. you know, Things like that. So, but the PI business kind of shifts over the years because you don't make as much money in workman's comp now. So then we went to more of preventing workman's comp by doing background checks and pre-employment checks and things like that, and also doing corporate due diligence for mergers and buyouts and things of that nature. And I can see the business is about to shift again. We're going to start doing things. I got to think of a better name for it, but basically it's investigating elder abuse. There are these
oh,
very well-off people that are in their late 70s to early 90s, and the families will hire, a companion or someone to come in and take care of them, and they're abusing that authority and that responsibility. And
the
uh,
caregiver?
yeah, the caregiver is, and they're stealing hundreds of thousands of dollars. They're using their credit cards, they're using their vehicles, they have access to their bank accounts and all kinds of stuff because this is things that you kind of have to have access to if you're really going to be responsible for people. And then in the newspaper just this week, there's like I think 22 people that have died under the care of unlicensed healthcare facilities where they'd have them in their home and they'll bring 2 to 3 people to come live with them. Now, would you let someone go live with someone that's not licensed? But people don't know. And this is what I've always kind of banked my clientele on is educating them. And if you go to my website, I'm not trying to turn this into an infomercial, but if you go to my website, it tells you how do you hire an investigator? Because I have heard some horror stories. There's some guys flash some badge or whatever and go, yeah, I'm a private investigator. Well, he's no more a private investigator than my big toe. You know, there's a license you have to do. There's education you have to do. There's continuing education. You have to have liability insurance. You have to pass background checks with the state of Texas, which is not a big deal, but you can't have it if you have a criminal background,
Mhm.
And I have a continuing education school to sustain other people's licenses so they can get the credits they need to keep their license. And what's really sad, and it tells you the type of quality of people that it's hard to find, not just in this industry, but any industry where you have license. I have a mentor program that I've had for over 20 years. And here's what it looks like. To get your own company license, you have to have 3 years experience in some capacity. You come work, not for me, you come work with me. And the reason I say that is you have to go get your own clients. You get your own clients. I show you how to work the cases. I help you work those cases and we split the fee. Okay. So people are making $40 to $75 an hour on things that they don't even know how to work yet because they're getting half the fee. After 3 years, if you want to go do your own thing, great. Go get your own license or you can stay with me. Not one person has completed the mentor program, not one.
Why?
Because they don't want that they think that being a private investigator means they get to strap on a gun or whatever, walk around like they have some authority and get to sneak around and do sneaky shit. They don't understand that it's a business. You've got to be able to do the books. You've got to be able to have contracts. You've got to be able to um, talk with clients. There is a skill set that you have to have. You have to be able to market. I do all those things. all those things. And I teach people all those things. And they think it's going to be like Magnum PI or whatever. They get to drive a fast car and chase after people and kick in doors and take names. No, no, it's the complete opposite of that. And when I've done an investigation, people don't even know they've been investigated. So anyway, I didn't mean to get off on that tangent. I may not love what I do, but I'm passionate about being good at it.
Well, if you've got a if you've got to check somebody out and you're spending the weekend in their RV park, I mean, it's about getting personal with them, right?
You have to be personable, and you have to be able to talk to people. One of the things I am the most proud of in my career is I've worked a lot of death cases, through car accidents, liability
Accidental
cases
death.
like that, and accidental death, auto wrecks, things. And there was this one case in East Texas where the entire DPS department in that area needed to be interviewed because people don't understand how DPS works in a lot of places. A DPS officer doesn't go out and do everything on a case from start to finish. You have this group that does this at an accident, and you have this group that does this in an accident, and you have this group that does this in an accident, and they may not know what group A or B has done, seen, whatever. They just did their job. So almost the entire DPS staff needed to be interviewed. And the client had already hired two, maybe three other investigators, and they don't have to. They don't have to be interviewed. They can say no. They can wait and be subpoenaed to court but if you subpoena the court, you're playing a wild card because you don't know what they're going to get up there and say. I got everyone in line for an interview at the DPS office through their captain. And every one of them spoke to me. Now, that's some skill. I'm sorry. Let me do this, but that's some skill.
It does. It does to get that many people to cooperate.
And those are the kind of cases I work now. I'm very choosy about what I do. So I make less money sometimes, but I actually make more money because I charge more because I have a skill set that other people don't have.
You have time and experience behind you.
And I just have the gift of gab, and I have the gift of listening. And I also, everything I do, I make sure, how am I going to handle this if the judge asks me how I came across it, or how do I know it? So I dot my I's because there's a lot of information PIs get that gets kicked out of court because they didn't do it properly. So.
But you did other things with your PI business. I mean, besides your PI business.
Yeah. So, we had mental health issues in our family. And so, me, I'm a fighter, when I see something that's wrong. And what struck me really hard was I had a brother that committed suicide when my children were very young. And that kind of started me on researching what mental health really entailed because I'd had so many situations where there were near death or death experiences. And my own grandmother had been in Terrell State Hospital twice when I was a child. I don't have any memory of that because it was when I was quite young, but it was always, hush, hush. Nobody would talk about it, the shame,
Mm-hmm.
and in fact, the family would even say that she did it on purpose just to get my grandfather to pay attention to her. Well, I hate to say this, but nobody checks himself into a mental institution just to get attention. You can stand up and throw a wall-eyed fit in the middle of your house if you want attention. Okay. So there was just a lot of things that pointed me into that direction, and I became a huge advocate on mental health issues, especially toward children, because the children were really not getting the education they needed. A lot of them were getting kicked out of school or being put into special education without any consideration that they could learn better than maybe someone who had lower abilities of learning, but they didn't have the social skills or the control that they needed to be in a regular classroom. And through the the advocacy work and the training that I got as a parent and also as an advocate, I landed a contract because I was not an employee, I was a contractor, which was new for with NAMI, Texas, of teaching and public speaking. And through the course of all that, I also started writing new curriculums on things that the parents and people needed to be taught. Um, and it was unheard of what I was doing for several reasons. One, I didn't live in Austin, so I didn't report to the office daily. I stayed here. Two, I was not an employee, I was contract labor. Three, I did not have a master's degree in anything. I don't have a college degree at all. I don't have a bachelor's, I don't have a college degree at all. So here I am with not a college degree, teaching, preaching, and writing curriculum on mental health issues, getting them published. And I probably taught in over 30 states to various groups or did public speaking over a 10-year period.
Wow.
And one of the things that I did for a long, long time is I taught at the Dallas Juvenile Center to the staff who handled the juvenile system on how to be better able. First of all, I taught them what the symptoms of mental health looks like. Just because people work in the mental health industry does not mean they understand what mental health looks like in children. It's different than adults. It's
Mhm.
much different in children. And second of all, I taught them how to have empathy, how to have better communication styles, and how to work with the children and the families so that they could have a higher success rate. And we did that for years, myself and another lady that worked with NAMI as well. And we went to California, we went to Nebraska, we went all over the country teaching and training people on how to teach what we were teaching with other NAMI groups and stuff. So I love doing that. I love doing that.
Well,
Um,
it's hard, even dealing with something now that's common, the ADHD or ADD or whatever we're calling it this week. Um, because those children don't react to things. I told you how I told Robert, I said, "Do you see this face? Do you see this face I'm making? That means mother is upset," because he didn't recognize facial expressions.
well, one of the things that I did that brought a huge value to the table is that I spent every dime I had and every dime I didn't have getting my children tested and looking at holistic modalities other than
Mhm.
pharmaceuticals. We looked at diet, we looked at allergies, we looked at cognitive behavior therapy, we looked at play therapy. It's what got me into NLP, which took me down a whole nother rabbit hole with coaching later on. Um, I mean, it's impossible. And I think it's one of the reasons why I have found this podcast so difficult. It's impossible to isolate a memory without saying, but it's attached to this, this, and this. And it doesn't make sense if you don't bring all this in together, you
Mhm.
know? Um, but and I incorporated a lot of the NLP that I learned over the years into the communication modalities that I wrote about in the curriculums. You know, it's got to be clear, it's got to be concise, it's got to be uninhibited, it's got to be kind. And so I'm teaching this modality at the Dallas Juvenile Center one night, and this guy has just been an asshole to me all night long. He's just a big old burly guy, and he's just being a butt, and I'm just, my ninja, I'm defending, and bouncing off his words and playing off of them and keeping a pretty good humor about it. And so I'm talking about being honest with these kids, and being uninhibited. So he stands up, and the fact that he stood up, I'm like, okay, I'm fixing to knock you down, motherfucker. And you've now pissed me off because he stands up and he puts his hands on his hips and he gets his head doing this. So you mean to tell me that when little Johnny is late on his curfew, I'm supposed to go, now, little Johnny, you need to come in on time. Okay. So that's not right because that's the rules. And I said, no, motherfucker, no one told you to lie. I said, that's a lie. I said, it had to be honest. I said, this is what you being honest looks and sounds like. Listen, Johnny, I'm the man with the stick. I'm in charge. You have a curfew. I'd like to see you succeed, maybe, because I don't like you much, but you have to come in on time or it's going to get revoked and you're going back to juvie. The whole room stood up and clapped because I called him out on his shit. And that's what I can, you know what? If I had to narrow everything I taught into like a little paragraph, it would be these kids are smarter than you and they know when you're fucking lying to them.
Mm-hmm.
Be honest.
Mm-hmm.
You'll get so much further being honest with them. So oh, that man just irritated me.
I have a sister-in-law that's in the juvenile uh, detention center in California. And that's what she says, you know. And she said she makes cookies and cupcakes and stuff, and she gives it as a reward
Yeah,
if everybody behaves.
yeah.
So she was called over the carpet about that. And
Well,
I
she
said,
can't
what,
give sugar to some of those kids.
huh?
She can't give sugar to some of those kids.
I
They
know.
can't have sugar. Like my grandson cannot have sugar. He and I went round and round at the movies the other day because he's like, I want candy. I'm like, you're not getting candy, damn it. You can't have sugar, you know. I said, you will not sit through a 2-hour movie if you have sugar. So we just spent $75 for nothing. You're not getting sugar. So see, I'm still dealing with it through my grandchildren as well. But you know, it makes me better at what I do, hopefully. They don't like it much sometimes though.
Well, no, because you know the rules, and that kind of bums them out.
I just do it for my own safety. If he has sugar, oh my God. I am too old to go to jail for murder. He is like a monkey. I mean, that child can climb the rafters. It is amazing. I mean, it is just amazing. This is exhausting. I have to tell people this. And this is hard doing this. It is. It's hard to keep track of the information. It's hard to put the timelines together.
Hmm.
And other than that, it's just tiring. And I don't know why it's tiring because I don't feel emotional about it and I enjoy my life and I like the fact that I have not been bored in my lifetime. I'm never bored. I'm never bored. But it gets tiring talking about it.
Well, that's what if I was doing it, I would think, oh gosh, no, that didn't happen during that time. That was this time.
I
And
have that problem sometimes. I have to be honest, and ironically or weird, and that's not the right word, but I don't know if there is a right word. Sometimes I had two or three things going on at the same time. Like when I was dating the three Jeffs. So there's like these three stories I could tell, but they were all going on at the same time because I was dating them all at the same
yeah.
time. And then it's not that they were going on at the same time, but sometimes it was like up and down. Cause like, my second husband, I dated him on and off for several years before we got married. And, so it would seem like, well, should be straight. And you just say, we started dating, blah, blah, blah. We got married. No, we dated, we went to Vegas, came home, we broke up. I did this, and this, and then we dated again, and then I moved, and in between all this stuff, I dated the bank robber, and then I got back with him because I needed a bail bondsman, and he was working for. I mean, so it's
Hmm.
it's it's tiring.
Well, I think that a life well lived is not going to go in a chronological way. I mean, you're going to
No.
be doing several things at once,
Well, if you were doing like dance steps on a piece of paper, you know how they plot out dance steps.
right?
If you were doing my life like that, it would look like I was drunk my entire life.
Oh
One
dear.
over here, then we kind of stagger over here.
Well, after NAMI, isn't that when you came up with the Council for Families and Children?
I inherited the Council of Families for Children. Ironically enough, During the course at the end of my tenure with NAMI, um, we partnered with the Council of Families to do a teen program, and they called it the Cool Program at the time. And it- they had some major financial issues, and it all fell apart. And some of those people were being investigated for criminal. I really don't even know the details. It's not that I forgot them, I don't know them. And that nonprofit wound up falling into this lady's lap, and I'm not going to use her name because I haven't asked her if I could. And so she and I continued on the partnership because I have now left NAMI. My contract did not get renewed. I got crossways with the board because I did not fall in line with their politics, and I was mouthy. And then I told a woman off in one of my classes. Uh,
No,
so it was a
you?
combination of several things that when my contract came up for renewal, it didn't get renewed. And then the person I thought was my best friend took over my contract. And I've often wondered how that worked out quite that way, but it's neither here nor there. So anyway, this woman, since there was no financial backing for the council anymore, she had lost her salary. She wound up getting a job, and she just gave me and signed everything over to me and transferred everything over to me to the council, which was no big deal. They didn't have any money, but I now owned the rights to the team program. Okay. So I took the team program and revamped it and rewrote it to fit into the curriculum that I had rewritten, that I was rewriting as well. So I rewrote all the curriculums I had written before, updated them, renamed them, and we did our whole group of our own. And then through the course of this and me exploring, see, everything's so freaking meshed. I was looking at, I was like, I was feeling a pain in my spirit. I was doing all these things physically, mentally, emotionally in my world, but my spirit was dying, even though I was doing all these wonderful things. And I needed to explore my spiritual gifts. So I was trying to, I couldn't find a church. I couldn't find any metaphysical classes that felt like they were in integrity for what I believed in and was right. And I stumbled upon this wonderful lady named Sharon Cody. And that's a whole segment in itself. So we're going to leave it at that.
Okay.
But it's just like I said, they all just, it's like, I don't know,
Intermingle.
like kneading dough. You knead it, you push it down, and you pull it back over, and then you push it down and pull it back over. That's what it's like.
And then somewhere in there, I guess you did your spiritual thing.
I'm still doing my spiritual thing.
So do you feel like your spirit has been renewed?
No, I don't think that's the right phrase. I think I finally found an anchor for my spirit to where it feels firmly planted so that
Mhm.
it has the freedom to go off in lots of directions while never losing sight of what it is and who I am.
Okay.
I think that's a more accurate explanation.
Okay.
Come on, tell me how much you like my hat.
Well, I do like your hat, but you designed that stuff on the side yourself, right?
I did.
Yeah.
So the card is representative of my entertainment company. The rose is me. The feather is like a feather quill for handwriting therapy. Um, I just like Native American stuff and I like hats.
Well, we know because you've got 1,000 of them back there.
I think there's 51 now, if you count like the little newsboy caps and my
51?
yeah, and my daughter gave me a raccoon cap like Daniel Boone wears one year for Christmas. I actually wear that sometimes. I like it. It's got it's fake fur, but it's got a real raccoon tail on it. I like it.
Okay.
All right, I think I'm done.
Well, I think you've got us all up to date
Well, no, I don't have you up to date. No.
on your
There's so
jobs.
yeah, There's so much more. But see, that's the whole thing. I never know what to talk about and what not to talk about, because I think that it's not what I've done that makes a difference or might even really, I think that it titillates people, some of the things I've done, like saying I've dated a bank robber, and things like that, which is true, I have. But I think really if there's any point to me doing this, other than me putting the shit together in my own head for my own self, is the things that you can take out of what happened to me, the lessons that you can discern for yourself.
Mhm.
I've learned something out of everything that's happened to me. And I feel like everything I've learned has been positive. You know, if I'm going to be embarrassed about anything, which I'm not going to be, but if I were, it'd just be that I'd be embarrassed at how naive I was for many years. And not naive so much as unsophisticated, I guess,
Yeah,
in the
well,
ways
it's a
of the world.
combination of that too.
Yeah. Okay. We'll close this. I'm done.
Close us. Okay, well, we'll figure out what to talk about next time, where to go. And it's interesting. I think that you're going to have trouble putting your book together because to me, what you need to do is go chronologically.
Not going to happen.
These 10 years, here's or 5 years, here's what's happened. Because it's
Not
so
going to happen.
intermeshed and it's so intermeshed together.
I think I'm just gonna have to write it like I'm sitting around just having a conversation.
Mhm.
And one of the things that I really know that reassures me that I have to write this is because there's an eloquence to these events that have to be described verbally that I can't do just thinking. Like, so I'll use this to close with. So we lived in Texarkana when I was a kid, and we lived right on the line of where this is the white people lived and this is where the black people lived. And we were told as kids to never go into the black section. Well,
Well, of course you
I
did.
did. I did. You didn't tell me not to do this. And I was not really a rebellious child. I just figured I had enough sense to know what I could and couldn't do because I didn't really trust the adults to know more than I did. And I was not arrogant about it. Well, that's a whole nother thing. But in my mind, when I tell this story, there's an eloquence to the freedom that I felt personally, but also the freedom I saw in the people sitting on their porches, in the children playing in the street. And I know this sounds weird, but I always thought that white people were missing out on something, that the black community knew something we didn't know. And I get my whole sense of self-worth from a woman of color from that neighborhood that we knew. I mean, she defined me, my foundation for me when I was a little girl.
Yeah,
And I just don't think I can capture that without writing about it. So,
her nuances. Well,
mhm.
thank you for sharing what you did. And I hope maybe we find something that we can take away.
I hope so too. If not, don't listen to it anymore. Damn it. I'm not making any money off it. I don't care.
So, I'm no angel, but I've met the devil. Is that
Yeah,
the
yeah.
okay?
Yeah, but
So
you know
we'll,
what? My husband said, he goes, "Are you sure you're not the devil?" He loves me though.
no, sweetheart, I'm not.
No, but I can give you the devil if you cross
Okay,
me.
well, I guess we'll meet here next time.
All
Say
right.
goodbye.
Goodbye.